All right, today we're going to dive into the work of the historian Flavius Josephus to really get a handle on the reign of a Judean king, Alexander Janneus. Now, this is a guy who came to power with this great reputation for being wise and, kind of moderate, but as we're about to see, the actual story of his rule was, well, anything but. So, Josephus really sets the stage for us here. When Alexander Janneus first gets the crown, everyone sees him as the steady hand, the mature, sensible choice. That's the expectation, right? That he's going to be this calming influence, not some hothead looking for a fight. And that, of course, is the million-dollar question. Did the reality of his reign, which lasted nearly 3 decades, actually match up with that promising start? Let's follow the breadcrumbs Josephus leaves for us and see what really went down. Okay, so where does our story begin? Well, where every king's story begins, making sure nobody can take the throne from you. And the very first things Alexander did after becoming king, well, they give us a pretty stark look into the kind of ruler he was really going to be. I mean, the contrast here is just wild, isn't it? On one hand, you've got this brutal, cold-blooded pragmatism. A potential rival, even your own brother, has to go, period. But on the other hand, he rewards his other brother for being loyal and this is the key part, for not wanting power. He's using both a sword and a reward to lock down his position from the very start. So, with things at home seemingly buttoned up, Alexander immediately turns his attention outward. You see, his ambition wasn't just to rule the kingdom he had, it was to make it bigger. So, this next chapter of his life is all about relentless, nonstop war with his neighbors. Just look at this timeline. It's an absolute whirlwind. He fights Ptolemy, then he knocks over 2 major cities. It looks like he's totally unstoppable. But then, bam, he gets hit with this devastating ambush. So does he retreat? Give up? No way. He just pivots, turns his entire army towards the coast, and starts a whole new campaign there. The takeaway is pretty clear. This guy did not quit. But we can't just gloss over that ambush. Before he got those wins on the coast, Alexander's army took a massive, staggering hit. It was a truly catastrophic defeat, and the cost was just immense. 10,000. Let that sink in for a second. According to Josephus, that's how many Jewish soldiers were killed in that single ambush. It's an almost unimaginable loss of life, and it really just hammers home how brutal these campaigns were. And this right here tells you everything about how he responded to that disaster. He doesn't just conquer those coastal cities, he enslaves their entire populations. This act of total victory, of total retribution, would have massive consequences. Why? Because it didn't just create enemies abroad, it lit a raging fire of resentment right at home. And this is the turning point. The whole story pivots. The conflict is no longer about fighting foreign enemies, it's about a violent, bloody civil war. The very people Alexander ruled rise up against him. The moderate king is now at war with his own subjects. Josephus makes a point to highlight the timing here, which is so important. The rebellion explodes during a sacred festival, a time when the whole nation was gathered in Jerusalem. This wasn't just some political squabble. This was a deep public rejection of their king, happening at the holiest time of the year. The anger had absolutely boiled over. This slide just lays the division bare. I mean, think about this for a second. The king of Judea couldn't trust his own people to fight for him. He had to hire foreign mercenaries, soldiers from places in modern-day Turkey, to put down a rebellion of his own Jewish subjects. The kingdom was truly and tragically at war with itself. So, how does this all end? Well, the resolution is just as brutal as the conflict itself, and it's what would cement Alexander's reputation for the rest of his reign, defining him not as moderate, but as something else entirely. Over 6,000. That's the number of rebels, his own people, that were slain by his mercenary forces right there in Jerusalem to crush the uprising. It was a flat-out massacre, and it was meant to end any and all opposition. And here's the tragic irony in all of this. Alexander Janneus keeps his throne. He wins. But he's a king who was saved by foreign swords, now ruling over a nation that sees him as the enemy. So what does a king in that position even do next? He doesn't miss a beat. He immediately projects strength. He takes the same army that just slaughtered thousands of his own people and marches it straight into Arabia. He conquers his neighbors, forcing them to pay tribute, and then, for the grand finale, he goes back to Amathus, the scene of his greatest defeat, and just demolishes the fortress. He basically turned a bloody victory at home into a terrifying show of power for everyone else. So, the man who started out with the label moderate had secured his kingdom through utter, terrifying brutality. This civil war was a massive turning point, but it wasn't the end of the story. And it leaves us with a really chilling question. How long can a kingdom possibly survive when its greatest enemy is its own king?